The, the opening and closing of the valve, which we showed you, is based on a timer, and we set the inspiratory time and the expiratory time. So we'll see another video.
Obey traffic signals.
So in this, you can see where we all have waited at traffic lights. If it is red, we stop. If it is orange, we start getting ready to go. And if it is green, we start going. So similarly, we can dial on the ventilator the time when we would allow the gases to flow into the patient. We could even dial for how much time you would allow the gases to flow in, that would be inspiratory time. And we can also dial how much time after we would allow the gases to flow out from the valve straight away, that is your expiratory time. So this is what a standard ventilator, if you buy the most basic model of ventilator, when you set IMV mode, this is what we're doing. We are just dialing a time and going according to that. In SIMV, that is almost actually, I would say IMV alone, the patient signal is sent to the ventilator. If the baby tries to breathe, then the signal is sent to the ventilator, and then the ventilator delivers a breath in response to the signal. But it still is an IMV. That means the number of breaths you have dialed when you set the ventilator up would always be given. Only minor movements of the breath can happen. Either the breath can be delivered by the ventilator a little earlier or a little later. Let us think this is an IMV breath. You can see all those green semicircles are breaths. Although we call them breaths, we know that in ventilators only gases are pushed in by the ventilator and the pushing out is a passive process. So here in IMV, it is happening that there's the same design of the breath continuously, same shape, same height, same everything, as well as there is a same timing between each breath. But if we are dealing with the patient breath happening like this, you can see the baby doesn't breathe like a machine. He may breathe sometimes faster, sometimes deeper, and sometimes shallow. So you can see that by chance, because we have dialed the ventilator breaths at an expected rate of the baby, so the baby is breathing fast and we dial 60 breaths, most of the breaths of the ventilator start with the patient's breath. First one, second one, third one. But in the third square, you can see this area which I have shaded. In this part, you can see the baby's red line has started doing expiration. But the ventilator is pushing gases into the baby. So gases are flowing in opposite directions and you get fighting, what we just showed you in the video of chaotic vehicle movement. So what an SIMV does is it senses the patient breath, that is the blue arrow here. So the patient's breath has come even before the next breath was planned, like in the graph above, where it is at a periodic time. Then it asks the ventilator to give breath a little earlier. If the signal took time to come, then it gives the patient, it gives the breath a little later. This is all SIMV is about. But the shape of the breath is the same, the height is the same. And you can see one blue signal which is marked in red. That is when too many signals are coming from the baby. If they are not similar to the rate that you dialed on the ventilator, then it can't sense all the signals and give breath. Because a minimum number of breaths as has been designed in the IMV only would happen. So all breaths are not triggered in SIMV. SIMV basically is IFV alone. Just a slight movement can happen to try and coordinate with the baby. In a traffic light, when we go, we see, and that is why we have to undergo color blind testing before we get a driving license. We have to know green, yellow, and red. But who sees when it is on a ventilator? There is a sensor. You can see that as the car is coming close to the sensor, I'll just mark where the sensor is. You can see the sensor there. That is the sensor on a smart signal. Then the sensor can see that car is coming and send signal to the traffic light and say the car is coming. Similarly, in a ventilator, the ventilator can sense by flow of gases in the circuit. So if baby tries to make an inspiratory breath and pulls in, that pulling in is sensed as a trigger, a signal, and sent to the ventilator. In some, it may be a pressure, and in some, may be impedance, like we use the ECG leads, they work on the principles of impedance, or an electric signal being sent directly from the phrenic nerve, which gives the signal to the diaphragm, what is called as sound. So all these signals are what the ventilator sees, how the baby is breathing, and then modulates the ventilation. The true patient-triggered ventilation, PTV, if we say, or what we know in some ventilators as SIPPV, or assist bar control. Actually, it's assist. Control is only if the assist stops, if the baby is not breathing at all. Here, what happens is every time the blue arrow comes, that is, the baby makes a breath. Every time the baby does and makes a breath, then the ventilator will deliver a breath. So here, the total number of breaths that will happen in a minute are decided completely by the baby. So if the baby is having RDS, pneumonia, and is breathing at 80 per minute, then the ventilator will support all the 80 breaths. If the baby goes down to 20 per minute, goes into apnea, then strictly speaking, the ventilator will do nothing and baby would die. And therefore, you have to have a minimum backup rate, generally kept as 30 breaths per minute. So if the baby is not sending 30 signals per minute, that is every 2 seconds he doesn't ask for a breath, then you would stop the assist mode and automatically go into IMV mode and support at least 30 breaths on the ventilator. So this is a good mode, because here, if the baby is breathing and asking the ventilator too many breaths, it means that the baby is not supported well. That's why he's still tachypneic. Tidal volume is small, so rates are high. Once the baby starts improving on the ventilator, you will automatically see that rates are coming down, because tidal volume start improving and the rates will start coming down. The problem with this kind of mode is something called auto cycling. I'll just show you a tiny video. You can see that if there is water in the circuit and it's dangling like this, then the ventilator thinks with every movement of water like this, that this is a signal being sent by the baby for breathing. Every time that the signal moves away from the ventilator, it senses as a baby breath. And you would land up getting some 100 or 150 breaths supported by the ventilator. And we all know that if the total cycle time of a breath becomes very short, then the gases don't get time to reach the patient. And therefore, there would be no ventilation effectively happening. So one of the disadvantages of having SIPP ventilation is that if there is water in the circuit of too many secretions, then you will get auto cycling and ineffective ventilation. You may worsen because of using advanced mode. Now, we have managed, if you are not having secretions and if you are not having humidification, then you will actually land up managing to synchronize, start the patient breath every time that the baby wants to breathe, and there will be no fighting at the beginning. But how do we match the expiration? You can see in the picture that I showed you in the beginning that the part where we had fighting was when the baby started expiring, but the ventilator didn't know that the baby wants to breathe out. The ventilator still kept giving the gases in. So do we have a method for the ventilator to understand that the baby is trying to breathe out? We will all have seen this kind of traffic light signals where there is a countdown going on, and we patiently wait till the countdown comes to something like maybe 10, and then we start putting our foot on the pedal, and by 2 or 1 we start taking the brake off and go to accelerator. We don't wait for it to become 0. Even at 8 or 9 countdown, we start taking the foot off the brake and start putting on the accelerator. So a machine can know by a countdown that we are reaching that point. So this is what is called termination sensitivity. When a baby is breathing out, the gases are flowing through the flow sensor. And at the beginning of expiration, the gas flow rate is very, very high. As the gas flow rate starts falling down, the machine can start understanding, like we saw in this method, that when it reaches 15, 14, you can see as the gas flow starts dropping and reaches a preset level of 15% of the peak flow, it knows that the breath is going to end and it may start taking the foot off the brake. That is, the valve will start opening slowly. And by the time the baby stops breathing, the valve will open completely and the ventilator will breathe out. Now we can see that if you use such a ventilator, which is able to sense the beginning of the breath and the ending of the breath, then you would have this kind of a mode of ventilation. You can see very clearly on the first breath that the ventilator gave, there is complete synchrony between the beginning of the breath and ending of the breath. The ventilator started breathing into the baby when baby started taking breathing. And when baby stopped breathing, ventilator also stopped breathing. And they were flowing completely in the same direction. Second breath also synchronized fully at the beginning of breath, end of breath. The third also, but third breath was smaller in diameter. Can you see that? The fourth breath was even smaller, but inspiration and expiration were matching. The fifth breath was smaller because baby breath was of a shorter duration. So when we use this kind of ventilation, which in some ventilators is called as PSV or pressure support ventilation, here you can see that the inspiratory time is different in each breath to match the expiratory time and inspiratory time of the baby. So if baby breathes a deep sigh like that, then the ventilator would also give a long breath. If the baby breathes panting, then the ventilator will give 3 small breaths. Each of them would start with the baby and stop with the baby. So in this case, fighting will be very, very less. So this is a very good mode of ventilation. It may be called by different names in different ventilators. It is best to check whether your ventilator is asking you to say that there is a inspiratory and expiratory synchrony or not. Now let us see yet another advance in
agent intersection control scheme.
Now you can have automated methods like in the traffic signals. If you have to prevent fighting completely, here you can see that there is a vehicle coming and sends a signal to the server, and the server simulates the path that the vehicle would go and looks out whether yet another vehicle is sending a server request for coming through that path. If we did not have this, they would crash, fighting would happen. The baby and the ventilator breaths would crash. Now what this can do is it can slow down one of the vehicle, like in air traffic control. You tell one plane not to land and your plane keeps going in circles because the aircraft is not finding place to land. So here it would delay one of the vehicles and ensure that there is no collision. It would allow one to go through and then the other would come. So this kind, some of us might have bought very advanced cars like this. The cars can sense when you're reversing that there is something on the back. The car can, even while driving, today there are what is called as AAD, that is assisted driving for safety, ADS. In these systems, even if you were gossiping on the phone and you forgot that there is a traffic light, the car can see the traffic light and apply brake by itself. If there is an old gentleman who suddenly decides to cross across your car, ultrasounds or radio frequency signals can go hit the gentleman like a bat, come back and tell you to stop. So this way there would be less accidents and less injury, and therefore this would make the ventilation much safer. But logically you can think what would happen if I'm driving in India. My car would never move because people would keep crossing in front of my car all the time and my car would keep applying the brakes. So you would never go at all. So there are limitations in these kind of systems. It's not that they are not without problems. They would work best in a clean airway and in a clean type of ventilation, not in a chaotic ventilation. So two major limitations are there. One is auto cycling, which I showed you earlier, where secretions or water can cause false signals to be given to ventilator to start or stop breathing. And another one is leaks, which auto cycling we just showed you, and this is leaks. In neonatal ventilation, we often do not use cuffed tubes. This pink portion is the cuff which we show you. If it is the cuffed tube, then all the gases would go only through the ET tube back to this green flow sensor. And correctly, they would be measuring of how much gases came out, when did they start coming out. But if in a neonate you're using non-cuffed tubes, then the gases can go through the side of the ET tube and would leak out completely or partially. And the flow sensor would get only half the signals. So if there is a significant leak, like you put in a small tube or the tube got slipped out a little bit, then the ventilation would not be measured correctly. And if the sensor is not correct, there would be no meaning of doing automated ventilation. One would ask, is it critical? I remember when I got my first scooter in 1990, people thought buying a scooter with an indicator was just a technique of companies to buy, get more money. It was 1,000 rupees costlier to buy one with indicator. And people thought that even if you put indicator, nobody sees it anyway. Today, we would never want to buy a car or a scooter without an indicator. So indicators or signals definitely make ventilation safer. But if it is a short ventilation, like you are taking out your car in your parking lot, you don't put the indicator. So if it is a 32-weeker who is going to get surfactant ventilated for 3 hours and then go to CPAP, then possibly it wouldn't make a huge difference if you use this kind of advanced mode of ventilations, which are making ventilation so clearly fine-tuned. But if it's a 25-weeker who may remain on a ventilator for 1 week or 2 weeks, and this injury to a developing lung with long ventilation and long term, some of them are on oxygen and gases for months together. And this would be decided by how you ventilate on the first few days, at least a part of it. Then this kind of fine tuning of ventilation becomes very, very critical. So when should I definitely have an advanced mode of ventilation? Is when I'm looking at a baby who has very high reaching side effects of ventilator induced lung injury. The last part which I will be touching is something called as the volume limit. We all have flush toilets in our home. It never overflows. When you press the flush, water goes out, then it starts refilling without having to ask to do it. You can see this. I'll just show you.
5. Alexander Cummings invented
That when you, water goes down and that you can see the chain going down and closing it. As the water starts filling up again, the float goes up. And when the float goes up, it says no more water needs to come in. So if you have a volume limit ventilator, then what happens is when a minimum volume that you are dialed in the ventilator, if it fills up the lung and reaches a tidal volume, then the valve would close and no more gases would come into the ventilator. And today we have recognized that the volume that is expanding the gases is more important as a cause of injury than the pressure. And therefore, modern day ventilators target a volume limit ventilation. So what would happen in a volume limit ventilator is that the net gases that flow every breath, the total gases also would vary, not just the inspirated time and expirated time. So if the previous breath achieved the tidal volume very easily, then in the next breath, the ventilator would be told that, look, we don't need this much pressure or this much flow of gases. So you can see that some of the next breaths would be smaller in size. What we also need to know is that this is a volume limit and not a volume guarantee, unlike what machines tell you. It's like your life insurance. It will be a limit. It would say you would get maximum term insurance of this much. But if you died much earlier or you have not completed your minimum period, then they would give you a much lesser amount than that. But there is no guarantee that you would get the full amount or a health insurance. Similarly, in volume limit, it can reduce the tidal volume if the baby is improving in his lungs. But it cannot increase the tidal volume if the lung becomes thicker. There is no guarantee that you would get more volume if the baby needs more. Whatever you said, that would be the maximum that would go to the baby. Volume limit in these tiny babies who I showed, like the 25-weeker, has reduced hypocarbia, which is associated with brain damage and also bronchopulmonary dysplasia. So by reducing the high tidal volume ventilation, you are able to reduce brain injury and lung injury. But there are issues just like the leak I showed you. If gases are leaking out of the ventilator, then the ventilator doesn't measure the volumes correctly. And in fact, you'll end up over ventilating because the ventilator measures only 4 ml, whereas 6 ml was breathed out by the baby. So if you don't understand this concept and you're just chasing the numbers on the ventilator, you would harm the baby rather than benefit by using this mode of ventilation. So how do I know that if the advanced mode that I have chosen is actually helping the baby? Why did we use this advanced mode? One is to reduce work, and second one is to reduce injury. And therefore, we must be looking at, by when I switch on the advanced mode, if I go from SIMV to PSV or SIMV to SIPPV, then what should happen? The baby's clinical respiratory distress should become better. He should require less oxygen on the ventilator than he was before I start on this advanced mode. His sensorium should become better. He should remain euthermic. His perfusion and heart rate should become better. His sugar should be better. So basically, baby should become better. So sometimes our residents who are young, they look at me and say, "यार ये बूढ़ा कब हटेगा यहाँ से निकू से तभी मैं advanced mode ventilation लगा पाऊंगा वही SIMV में लगा हुआ है." I can't explain to them that we played with this mode of ventilation in 2000 when we were DM trainees. But now I'm not switching it on because my worry is after I go away to the OPD, this young postgraduate may not realize that because of auto cycling or because of leak happening from the ventilator, the machine is asking more and more and he keeps dialing more and more. He doesn't realize that it is the faulty measurement and that is causing the more to be required. So if a ventilator is asking for more after you have switched on, then rather than judging that we didn't realize that baby need more and keep on increasing the supports, you need to possibly go back to basic ventilation and say, look, there is something faulty in the measurement and I am not benefiting, I'm only harming the baby by going to advanced mode. So when should I not use this advanced mode, which can sense beginning of breath, ending of breath, and give a tidal volume? If there is a significant leak, I put a small tube, there is too much condensation or secretion, or there is a baby who is agitated because of HIE, because of intracranial bleed, he's moving too much, he's like a seizure jittery baby, they can cause difficulty. Or if the doctor or nurse who is going to stand by the baby is not experienced enough to recognize that the baby has not benefited and is basically getting harmed by choosing this advanced mode of ventilation. There are other modes which I will not touch upon today unless a specific question has been asked at the end of the presentation. For example, I can use even non-invasive modes to synchronize. You can easily understand that they would require very high quality of sensors to put in the nose rather than in the ET tube and pick up all the breaths. So there are a few non-synchronized or synchronized modes of nasal ventilation, nasal IMV. Newer modes can pick up signal from the nerve that is applying to the diaphragm, the phrenic nerve directly. So there is no risk of leaking of gases, auto cycling, delay in the signal because you're taking it right from the baby's brain to the diaphragm. There are also automated modes nowadays where you can measure from an arterial line going directly to the ventilator and it measures the oxygen and carbon dioxide and then reduces the FiO2 if it is not required. If the carbon dioxide is very high, it can increase the settings of ventilator. So basically you will have to simply connect the baby to ventilator and the ventilator will do everything based on the blood gas reports. But I don't see that how it can replace by standing near the baby and actually doing what we need to do. All machines would have their own limitations. Rather than getting more worried about artificial intelligence being used more, we should have vehicles with sensors, we should have vehicles with safety systems. But I am more worried about our complete loss of skills of ventilation if we depend totally on these machines and not use our own clinical skills. Unlike my teacher telling, stand by the side of the baby and then look at his chest movement, look at his breathing pattern, look at his nasal flaring, and see whether the baby is happy on the ventilator or struggling. These skills cannot be taken away. It would take a very long time before an artificial intelligence can replace all these human skills and replace the mode of ventilation completely. I have intentionally not touched high frequency ventilation. I'll just leave it at that because I thought this itself would be too many new facts coming to some of the audience and can come back to answer these questions if Dr. Sanva or any other participant in the group would like to ask. So I would stop here and thank you, sir, and we can take a discussion on this and repeat any slide if it is required.
Thank you so much. If there are any questions.
I think I would like to give a comment. An outstanding lecture, sir. I can only envy your students and residents.
Thank you, Girish, sir.
Amazing.
Yeah.
lecture.
What a wonderful simile with the traffic and the flush.
Sir.
I would like your critical comments on the modes of ventilation, because most of the descriptions say that at the end of the day, it doesn't really make any difference in the clinical outcome of the baby. So do you think there is so much of fuss about the modes of ventilation rather than we need to learn more basics of ventilation?
I agree with you, sir. Just like when we talk about which unit can start ventilating, we say that if your neonatal mortality is low in the unit, if babies are dying due to sepsis and hypoglycemia, then there's no point in having a ventilator. So similarly, the day we have no baby dying on the ventilator because of VAP, no baby getting accidentally extubated, if we have optimized that we are reducing the number of days on ventilation by doing less blood gases and less x-rays and more clinical assessment, then we start thinking whether I want an advanced mode. It's like, I have to be honest that I managed to buy a second car in my career. My first car was a very basic model. And the second car had a few of these sensors. And I was struggling to drive the car. After 18 years of driving, I was looking like I never had a driving license because I didn't know what to do. My servant lady put those nimbus under the car and tried. मैं तो ऑन ही नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ, गाड़ी चल ही नहीं रही है. I didn't realize कि वो न्यूट्रल में नहीं डालोगे तो ऑन ही नहीं होती है. So if you buy a very advanced mode and if you do not know what you're doing, then you would actually more damage the patient than help him. But if you're going to deal with very, very tiny babies like a 25, 26 weeker who is going to remain, in these babies, they had done elegant experiments by measuring the oxygen consumption and work of breathing. And they have been able to show that the work of breathing does come down if you use automated modes of ventilation. But like you said correctly, sir, they have not yet translated into hardcore clinical outcomes like better survival and better BPD rates. But I think this is because they were used in units where they were using even basic modes of ventilation very nicely. And therefore, all the damages were at very low already. Volume ventilation in some papers have shown to reduce hypocarbia and even PVL. But I have to confess that I do not allow that to be switched on in our unit, even though each ventilator has the same provision. Because what happens more often is the ventilator will give an alarm that pressure settings are low. Because if in a given breath, because the baby just slept off for a second, the machine would not get sufficient volume delivered and would say that pressure limits are low, please increase pressures. And an inexperienced resident would faithfully follow what the ventilator said and increase the pressure. After that, every breath would start getting more tidal volume and it would be more damaging. So we would use these modes of ventilation only when somebody very experienced is standing near the baby. It helps you to plan your weaning very easily. So your accidental weaning or failed weaning can be brought down, because if you put on automated boards, then they would ask for less breath rate and less PIP. That means you're sure this baby is very safe to extubate and you don't have to reintubate again.
Right. Any question, Girish? Girish, you can unmute yourself.
I have unmuted myself. I have no questions to ask at the moment.
Okay, okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
So neonatal seizures, on a different topic. What is the first time that you use now? Levetiracetam or phenobarbital or phenytoin?
Sir, there are at least a few studies which have shown that levetiracetam may be more as a safe medication for long-term brain outcomes. But there are also concerns that in situations like HIE, the seizure control may or may not. Both conflicting studies are there. Larger studies have shown that pheno is more effective in reducing seizures. But there is one recent paper which has shown both are equally good. So what do we do? It actually depends upon the age of the consultant in the unit. If it is a 35-year-old consultant, they use levetiracetam, and they think that the senior consultant has not grown up, he is not reading. The senior consultant says, I have seen more of phenobarbital, so I would use. But more importantly, I think it would depend on the second and third doses. Phenobarbital is shown to be significantly detrimental to brain if used in high doses. So I think if you are forced to push a second dose or a third dose because seizures are not getting controlled, then we have to hold our hand and say that let me think of some other anticonvulsant than phenobarbital. So I guess that would be my thought process, so that a second dose of phenobarbital can be very damaging.
There are some recent papers that say that therapeutic hypothermia is not a good thing in developing countries like India. What is your take on that?
Going beyond the controversies that were raised, there are two different aspects of. Even before it was done in India, we have to realize that this was a therapy which was slightly improving the outcomes of babies with HI. It is not a cure. If you read the editorial clearly, which came 10 years back, they said, don't tell the parents we are giving you a treatment. Because treatment means you will be free of problems. In moderate HI, it does not work for severe HI. It is not useful for mild HI. In moderate HI, if the disability rate is 60% in non-cooled babies, it is about 45 to 50% in the cooled babies. So there was that means even in the cooled babies, there is a significant risk of disability, which itself means that we have not found the answer to the disease. HI is not answer to the disease. It just reduces the brain metabolism rate a little bit so that the brain is not spending too much. In this crisis, when he is not having energy input, more neurons will not die. When it comes to Indian scenario, I think the paper which was discussed by Dr. Sudhin Tayil's group and concluded that it did not work in India, did not make a correct statement. And the reason is that they did the study in places where enrollment was very easy. They did not come to our center. We didn't accept the protocol also because taking enrollment patient को अगर सच में बोलना पड़ेगा कि आपका कूलिंग हो रहा है, ये है, वो है, तो पेशेंट तो प्राइवेट में दिमाग खा जाएगा. लेकिन अगर गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल विद नो नथिंग अगेंस्ट, वो पीजी रात को बैठा है, बच्चा आया, उसको मन कर रहा है कि आज मुझे कूलिंग करना ही है, मेरे को मशीन भी है, बच्चा भी है, तो क्राइटेरिया में बना दिया, कूल कर दिया बच्चे को. उसके बाद मॉनिटरिंग कैसे हो रहा है? Without naming two centers, major centers which were involved in cooling, can you believe it? वहाँ पे NIBP भी मेजर नहीं होता है. वहाँ पे टेम्परेचर ऑफ बच्चा इवन जब कूलिंग नहीं हो रहा तब भी मेंटेन नहीं है. 5-6 बच्चों के लिए एक नर्स है. तो जैसे हम एडवांस मोड ऑफ वेंटिलेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, अगर उस बच्चे का ब्लड शुगर, ब्लड प्रेशर, परफ्यूजन मॉनिटर नहीं किया तो बेचारा कूलिंग करेगा क्या? So then they followed up these babies and they say that cooling doesn't work. So the enrollment was done in a very, very, very casual way. And if you look at all the devices, they were given to government hospitals and they were given free of cost so that babies would be in cooled there. And these hospitals wanted a cooling device. बाहर से कोई खरीद के देने वाला नहीं था. And therefore, 80% of the babies who were cooled, they have shown outbound babies who traveled from a center जहाँ पे resuscitation भी आज भी डेक्सामेथासोन और सोडा बाइकार्ब से होके बताया भी नहीं कि एस्फिक्सिया था कि नहीं था, वो बच्चा सीजर मारता हुआ आ रहा है. 8 घंटे भी हो गए तो कूल करना है इसलिए 6 घंटे लिख के कूलिंग कर दिया. तो दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई इट फेल्ड. बट ऑल ऑफ माय कोलीग्स वुड वाउच दैट इफ दे हैव डन इनबॉर्न बेबी जो एस्फिक्सिया हो गया उसको करेक्टली अगर कूल कर रहे हैं, व्हाई वुड आवर आउटकम्स बी डिफरेंट इन यूके, यूएस और इंडिया? हाउ कैन इट बी डिफरेंट? बच्चे बच्चे हैं, एस्फिक्सिया एस्फिक्सिया है. We are not biologically inferior human beings to another country. But this is for sure. I have been strong believer from the beginning that if A therapy doesn't work for severe, doesn't work for mild, and works in moderate also to decrease from 60 to 50, don't call it magic. It is an adjunct. So it works in India, but it is not a magic therapy.
I mean, Dr. Naveen, how do you get the insight of so many details of the working of the units which have reported the papers? And I mean, how do you get access to those information when analyzing a paper? It's
Sir,
so hard for a.
in this case, I had the advantages. Pre-COVID, we had so many conferences and we used to travel. And without naming one of the parent center which the study was started, there a very sincere teacher like you used to invite me to help the residents and consultants to learn ventilation. Because when they got this therapy started, when this trial was started, that medical college was given ventilators, ultrasound machines, BP devices, and even they were given floors, mats, everything as a part of this trial. And they got the cooling device, they got the ventilators, but we went there to do at least 5 workshops because none of them were willing to start ventilating there because they were not familiar with this before this trial happened. Now you can imagine that if that unit is going to ventilate for the first time and cool for the first time, and if the outcome was not going to be good, can you blame it on the cooling? I don't know whether you remember there was a surfactant which came in called Surfact about some years back. It was very inexpensive. It was only from Sun Pharma. It was only some 5,000 rupees. Very soon they found that it was not working and all were getting pulmonary hemorrhage. But nothing was wrong with that surfactant. The same surfactant we used in PJ when we were residents. That time it was called Exosurf. कुछ भी difference नहीं है. वही है, same नाम बदला था. But the problem is when it became 5,000 rupees from 15,000 rupees, then every nursing home started giving surfactant and they did not even know whether they're intubating or putting into the esophagus before giving. Temperature monitoring नहीं हो रहा था. 5,000 तो दे ही देते. 15-20 हजार रुपए था तो पूछना पड़ता था पेरेंट्स से कि दें कि नहीं दें. जब वो मीरोपेनम से सस्ता हो गया तो सबको दे दिया. And there was no monitoring, no training when it was being done, and the bad name came to the surfactant. So in at least 5 units which I cannot name, the clinical monitoring on bedside was not possible. There was no consultant deciding whether this baby is eligible for I know I'm being recorded, but I don't want to be quoted.
Right. So, any more questions? Any other comment? You can ask any question unrelated to ventilation to Dr. Naveen. You would be aware that he is more than an accomplished teacher to answer any question.
Hypocarbia must be a big problem in centers which do not practice this regularly ventilation. I'm always worried about hypocarbia.
Correct, sir. We should not have hypocarbia. That is the only indication for doing blood gas when you're ventilating.
Even a
So
short period of hypocarbia can lead to PVL.
yes, sir. Although it is not as bad as it seems to be described because the risk is in the small babies, maybe 30 weaker and less. But definitely the easier way to do is what my teachers have taught me is to stand by the baby's side and see at the baby like this. If you can see the chest moving, then you're overventilating. अगर आप नॉर्मल बेबी को देखते हैं, यू कैन नेवर नो कि ब्रीथ कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है. बहुत ध्यान से देखना पड़ता है. अगर बेबी वेंटिलेटर पे ऐसे मूव कर रहा है, देन तो हाइपोकार्बिया आएगा ही. यू आर ओवर वेंटिलेटिंग. सो बिफोर डूइंग अ ब्लड गैस, keep reducing the PIP till such a level that you can barely see the baby breathing. Similarly, the number of rates that we dial on the ventilator should be reduced till such time that baby makes at least 3 or 4 breaths of his own every minute. You should not be doing what is called overdrive ventilation. If you are doing everything, तो बच्चा क्या पढ़ेगा अपने आप से? तो कुछ तो बच्चे के लिए भी छोड़ दो. तो उसी तरह से वेंटिलेट जब करते हैं, तो keep reducing the breath rates, support breath rates in such a way that at least 4 to 5 breaths baby makes. If we do these two things, sir, I think that hypocarbia would be very uncommon on a blood gas.
Okay, then it's time to thank you
One request to
profusely,
Dr.
Dr.
Samar Agarwal. We should have Dr. Naveen Jain more often,
Yeah, as often as we can have him.
based on his availability, of course, but I think we
Yeah.
should have him more often. Amazing.
Absolutely. Agree. And we
Great,
really
great,
envy your students and your residents.
Thank you, sir. But they are the ones who make us teachers, and I must thank them as well to give us ideas on how to make things simpler.
Being simple is the most difficult thing, I guess.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your experience, knowledge, and wisdom. Thanks a lot. We would
Thank you,
definitely
sir.
love to have you again as many times as possible.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank
Good day.
everybody for.
Thank you, sir.